So, Pia, thank you very much for joining us today. Now, we're sitting in the middle of the Set Tech Festival here in Berlin, so we're surrounded by innovative companies, great solutions, looking at targeting the energy transition. So what sort of technology innovations that are sort of targeting the energy space, the climate change space, what's really exciting you?
It's hard to really pick just one technology. There are some technologies where everyone's talking about right now, like green hydrogen, for example, and the entire infrastructure that is developing around it, or energy storage, anything from batteries, new solutions around batteries, new materials, battery recycling, all the way to long duration storage. What I find really exciting as well is innovation that does not get as much attention as green hydrogen, for example, or storage. There's a lot happening in the construction sector, for example. There's one great project that is called Energiesprong, where they look at retrofitting entire buildings and making them more energy efficient. And then in general, solutions around energy efficiency that come from the AI side or blockchain. Here at dena, for example, our digital technologies team is working on some really cool projects around machine identity ledgers that looks at connecting millions of energy generators or generating units and facilities into the energy system. They look at visualizing CO2 emissions. It doesn't get as much attention maybe as the big topics, but they're still really important and contributing massively to reaching the net zero goals.
Looking at the near future, so a little bit of crystal ball gazing. I mean, what innovations are you kind of seeing on the horizon that could really make a difference in helping us hit our net zero goals?
Well, one topic there is the whole carbon removal topic. It's already there, but it's still quite expensive at the moment. But it's massive machinery that's behind it, right? And a lot of research and development that's maybe not just on the horizon. It's already there, but still has a little bit of a way to go. But I think it's just really important to look at all the solutions that we already have there and scale them, because there's so much around already at our fingertips, and it's ready to be implemented, to be deployed, and we just need to accelerate the scaling of it.
Now, maybe let's sort of look at some of the not the technology trends, but maybe the sort of wider trends. So whether that's in funding or in terms of policy and political support for the kind of startup ecosystem. So looking at the European level, what do you see as the main trends at the moment there?
Well, what we're seeing right now is that finally the whole funding side is picking up pace a little bit, because up until now, funding climate tech startups, especially the hardware tech startups, has not been at the level in Europe as it is elsewhere in the world, especially in the States, for example. And this has got several reasons, but hardware and tech startups just need a lot of capital from the start, but also then particularly when it comes to scaling. And in Europe, there's a lot of funding around early stage, seed, pre-seed stage startups. But then once you need more money than that, it gets a little bit more difficult. And then also, it's not an easy sector to understand. I think this has been a little bit difficult as well for VCs, for example. It's a regulated market, which also does not make it easier. And the investment cycles from VCs do usually cover shorter periods than a hardware or tech startup would need or is looking at. But we see that changing massively, or dramatically at the moment. There are a lot of new VCs in the space, a lot more money flowing towards climate tech startups, and also more like tech and hardware startups. So that's something that is changing quite rapidly at the moment, and it's great to see.
Oh, I was going to say that's very positive, isn't it? Because I think realistically, we there's some fantastic digital solutions out there, but I think ultimately we will need the hardware, hard tech to get us where we need to be. And maybe bringing it down to Germany. Are there kind of particular trends that you see in the German innovation space that are maybe specific for the country?
I think Germany, well, in general, the startups here right at the forefront of coming up with innovation for around the energy transition and to reach net zero. One thing where there might be a little bit of that should become a trend is to have more diversity when it comes to startups, more diversity in teams, because it is something that is really important. It's something where we've seen that it really helps startups to be successful, and that's something that is hopefully changing and will become more of a trend here in Germany. I think in Germany you do have that generally that drive to innovate, that whole engineering spirit, and there are a lot of really great universities here that bring out startups, and especially in the sort of technical tech space. So obviously you have that in other countries too, but I think in Germany you really feel that whole interest in engineering and coming up with new ideas and solutions.
Yeah, sort of problem solving. And
yes.
I think quite often the sort of cultural aspects of what drives innovation is maybe not given quite as much prominence as it should be, because it is incredibly important. And I'm kind of taking us back down. So we're, as I mentioned earlier, we're sitting in Berlin. Where does sort of Berlin sit within Germany and its innovation system?
Well, Berlin is one of the top startup cities in Germany. I think in the ranking, it's always number 1 or 2, depending on which aspect or angle you look at. But Berlin has got a huge pull factor for startups, and because it's an international city as well. But then in Germany in general, you have different cities, different startup hubs, depending on which topic you look at. So because Germany is not very centralized, so you have, for example, in Munich, you also have a great technical university there, and a lot of startups that come out from this university and that work, for example, more in the mobility sector. And then you have Hamburg, for example, that is quite strong in when it comes to logistics, wind energy. So it's a little bit fragmented in Germany, but Berlin as such, as a city, as an international city, is really attractive for startups, not just in the energy sector, but different sectors.
And then I was quite interested to have your thoughts really on kind of obviously the current energy crisis that we're all facing right across Europe. Arguably, Germany is right at the toughest point there with its reliance on gas. What you thought would be the potential impact or impacts on kind of innovation development going forward?
Well, I think the biggest impact is it just really puts more pressure on coming up with innovation, or not just even coming up, but really implementing what we've got already, and speeding up everything that we're doing. It's really that sense of urgency that now I think everyone can feel, and that hopefully will be that really, really big push that we always needed, and that will make things happen even faster right now.
As we're sitting here in Berlin, it seems a good time to kind of get your thoughts on what do you think other cities could learn from Berlin's approach to the energy transition, moving us towards our net zero goals?
Berlin is really good at attracting and setting up a startup ecosystem. So it's really a city that pulls in innovation, that pulls in talent, and that does a lot to help startups set up here, to feel comfortable in the city, and then the rest just happens, right? So the important thing is creating an ecosystem that attracts talent and people who are willing to found startups and help achieving the goals of the energy transition.
Well, thank you, Pia. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you.